Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, you obviously work on your own plans, given the state of the economy now. What is your estimate of how quickly that kind of action could produce results, and what would those results be? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, look, Jim.
Yeah.
They're making a god-awful mess of the economy.
Yeah.
They're about to slaughter it. I'm not going to sit on this programme and having a bloody WEA lecture on what the Labour alternatives might be in 3 years' time. For Christ's sake, we're the opposition, they're the government. They've cocked it up totally. I am not going to sit here and be bloody quizzed on the alternatives. He's the Chancellor of the Exchequer. He's buggered it up totally. Blown away £100 billion worth of oil revenues. None of that's our fault, and we've been coming on programme after programme after programme for years, telling them not to do it.
Well,
for Christ's
but
sake.
you could say that. I mean, I was sort of inviting you to say that.
I've just bloody said it, and you asked for the 4th time, so what would you do? Come on, Jim.
Well, I mean, I'm
Look, they're
flabbergasted, to be
smashing
honest.
up our country, right?
Yeah.
And I'm serious about that. I don't give a sod about the politics of it. They are smashing up the country. They should be on the rack. I'm not going to be bloody kebab talking about what the alternatives are. We're not in control of it.
No,
if I was the Chancellor of the Exchequer, I'd tell you what we do this afternoon about credit controls.
Well, you could probably hear particularly loud laughing coming from the front row, because we're going to reunite them. Neil Kinnock and James Naughtie, come up on stage. I do like the way they're approaching from different ends of the stage, like a couple of prize fighters.
It was a long time ago.
I think, Jim, you actually got invited to the British Kebab Awards, didn't you, as a result of that?
Well, no, the terrible thing was, I mean, this is a true story, that months later, after the dust had settled, the leader of the Labour Party decided to make peace and invited Ellie, a former producer in The World at One, and myself to dinner at an opera at Earl's Court. Do you remember? They said, "Oh, go to one of our favourite restaurants." We went to a place in Kensington High Street, and we had a lovely evening and so on. We sat down, and it was all fine, and things were kind of calming down, and it was all fine. And then the proprietor said, "Oh, Mr. Kinnock, how lovely to see you." And I said, "Well, that's great. Don't order anything, just leave it to us." And then a trolley arrived, and he took a tin of kebabs as far as the eye could see. And we both just about fell off the seat. Do you remember?
Oh, it was lovely. Absolutely.
It's a long time ago. Anyway.
So what lay behind the interview? How did it end up like that?
It was total... You can talk in a minute. It was total inexperience on my part, because we were doing it at 10 to 1, as frequently happened. And you had been in an NEC meeting where you'd been driven mad by various people, some of whom are still in your party, but anyway, they were. And I just said, "What are you going to do?" And you went nuts. And stupidly, we stopped the tape, and we should just have carried on and said, "Look, let's do this again." And I said a terrible thing to you. I said, "Look, you can say anything as long as you don't say a word which couldn't possibly be mentioned on the radio."
You don't seem to have too many qualms about that these days, Jim.
But there was a strike on, and somebody took the tape and gave it to somebody on the picket line, who gave it straight to the Evening Standard. And the rest is history.
Chrisman Creef was sitting in from PA.
From the Press Association.
And with his remarkable shorthand, was taking everything down. And somehow, which is totally against Chris's newshawk instincts, of course, it leaked to the Evening Standard and got the last edition. And the rest is history. It did wonders for kebab sales, actually.
Well, it certainly did.
So it wasn't entirely without a blessing.
You certainly sounded very wound up that day.
Oh, the point is, as Jim says, I had come from an NEC. And if anybody's had the experience of sitting on a cactus in their swimming trunks, they'll understand exactly what that did to my temperament. And then I turned up. The government was justifiably subject to criticism.
The economy, I think.
Yeah,
is what
buggering up the
yes.
economy is the technical phrase, as William Davis will confirm, and not repeated since, of course, by any government. And I really was exercised about it. And Jim simply kept on asking me the same damn question.
What would you do?
Exactly.
Which I think was the question.
That's right. And of course, it's like good spin bowling. It's the simple questions that you know are going straight. They're not going to hurt you, but they really will take your wicket out. And the point is, I hadn't turned up to answer questions. I turned up to kick the daylight out of the government. Anyway, Jim got in the way, and the consequence was a very fine evening in the opera.
But it was a great era, because the foundations that had been laid, as you've heard, for the programme, right since the early days, meant that in the tumult of the 80s and the kind of nightmare of the Labour Party in the early 80s, the Thatcher era, the period we are talking about, 88, 89, it was a tumultuous period of politics. And you had that extraordinary period with the SDP Liberal by-elections in the early 80s, then you had the miners' strike, all the drama of that era. And it seemed as if, although outlets for interviews were increasing extraordinarily quickly in television, there was still on radio, and Today had come into its own as a political programme in the early 80s, and World at One was still there. There was still such an excitement about those interviews, wasn't there? Yeah. I mean, they were still special.
Neil, as a politician, I mean, what is your attitude towards interviewers? Because it's a tense, it's a difficult relationship, isn't it?
No. The people who are on top of it and subject you to testing examination are the ones that are welcome. The ones that haven't done their homework and ask vague, generalized questions, they can be absolutely infuriating. It's better, however, for the person being interviewed if he's not asked the same question 4 times.
Well, sometimes it's necessary.
But what Jim says about
answering it,
wait a minute. Listen, whether to answer or not is the privilege of the person being interviewed, and we've all got to retain our rights. Yeah. But the thing is about people have been saying nice things justifiably about World at One, but it is this extraordinary rock-like ability, even in this changing era of 24-hour rolling news, superficiality, sound bites, and all the other things, which I know are inevitable. The technologies come, the thirst for news has come, so the two get together. But right in the middle of it is World at One, which retains dignity without pomposity and incision without arrogance, and there's a remarkable mixture continued through all the presenters and editors, amazingly, of retaining real authority whilst the stormy waters of 24-hour news gurgle around. And it's a program that can often be breathtaking because of its immediacy, but is never breathless. It doesn't gabble like so many other news.
I think it's fortunate. It comes at a good point in the news cycle, actually, even today, would you say, Jim?
Even today. And a name that hasn't been mentioned so far in the evening is that of Martin Cox, whose funeral, sadly, I attended with many others in this room only 10 days ago or so. Martin was editor when I joined in 88. Kevin was his mad deputy. I mean, Martin used to sit there with this wonderful brain and editorial edge of his and a kind of icy politeness at the morning meeting. He was a brilliant editor, I mean, wise and incisive and deeply humane underneath the exterior. And he was like he's like the Bond villain who sits there and says, Mr. Naughtie, I myself am a wise and gentle man. My friend, however, Mr. Marsh. and Kevin would be standing there with sort of knuckle dusters. And Martin would say, I'll leave you to Kevin. And Kevin would come into the meeting and say, why haven't we got Saddam Hussein in the Baghdad studio? What the hell's this about? Et cetera, et cetera. But Martin was a fantastic man. And what I sort of learned from Martin when I joined the programme and from Kevin was that iron tradition of excellence, of a kind of razor-sharp approach to things was what was expected. Now, you seldom got there. Sometimes it happened, sometimes it was a complete mess. But when you did get there, you thought, that's what we're for. We never had any doubt about what we were for. I must tell a quick story, which I'm afraid Kevin will remember. I was in Paris this morning for another program, and time's moved on, but a long time's moved on. Kevin will remember this. We were in Paris for the, whatever it was, the bicentennial of 1989. You can count, 1789, 1989. Anyway, we were there, and we were going to be doing a live playing of the Marseillaise by a band that was going to march past our van and we were on Bastille, you remember this. And just in case, we've got somebody to record it on tape, in case the band, they all went to the pub or something. And so I said, the world at one, in Paris, the headlines and so on, and then somebody shoved on the tape and they played it again. So the whole idea of this band marching past, doing a live rendering of the Marseillaise, was rendered completely null and void before we'd even read the headlines. Anyway, those were the days.
I feel we should be ending this bit of the programme with the Marseillaise ourselves, but anyway, I'll leave you two to go off and have a kebab or whatever it is you plan to.
We'll go and have a fight or a kebab or a night at the opera.
Thank you both very much indeed.
Happy days.